Mm.
Hola, hola, muy buenos días a todos. Bueno, estamos felices esta vez acá en nuestra serie de webinar Argentina, Alemania, Chile sobre redes inteligentes. Hoy día tenemos el honor de escuchar algo más detallado por parte de la empresa alemana Venios. En ese caso, presenta hoy Maximilian Wurm, cofundador y CTO de la empresa Venios. Y esa presentación será como figura en el programa, será en inglés. Y todos ustedes, como siempre, tengan la opción durante la charla poner sus preguntas en el chat o esperar la presentación y poner las preguntas al final. Esa sesión Q&A va a dirigir luego Gerardo, que yo me parto silenciosamente un poquito antes. Bueno, así, bueno, mucho gusto. En otras palabras más, paso la palabra a Max, por favor.
Muchas gracias. Yes, good morning, everybody. I think it's the best for all of us if I continue in English instead of Spanish. And yeah, I'm very actually appreciated a lot that I was invited to talk about artificial intelligence for distribution grids, because that is one of the core topics actually of Venios. To the outside, it does not even appear like that, because in the everyday projects, you have so much to do with all the grids, grid automatizations and just administrative topics in the projects and data structures. But the core of the whole project is really artificial intelligence, and to bring it to the distribution grids as a use case then on the top level. And after short introduction, what we will go through is like 3 steps. The first step is really like just a very fast jump through the history of artificial intelligence, because that is the tool set of what we can use at Venius and what you can also use in your projects and everybody else working in the field. And then we show 3 different kind of use cases that we already realized. Naming it's load forecasting, the disaggregation of load, and my colleague Human Hyderabadi will present his work actually, which is the execution of power flow based on artificial intelligence instead of doing it based off old school normal mathematics. And yeah, afterwards, I will also, if there is some time left, I will jump shortly into the platform as well to really show you what does it mean in an enterprise solution. So as I said, a short introduction also about us. I will shortly start about myself and why I feel like I can talk about this topic. Tobias already said that I'm part of the Venios founding team in those days. Like, we do this now already for 12 years. And I worked with a lot of different utilities in Germany, also internationally. And I'm very active also in the different associations talking about how to develop the electrical energy grid. And personally, I'm computer scientist from ETH Zurich. So my focus was really on artificial intelligence. And maybe you also want to say something about you, Human?
Yes, so hello everybody. I'm Human Hyderabadi, so I joined Venus since October 2024, recently. And so my background is in power electrical engineering. So I'm specializing in programming, optimization, AI, and renewable energy. And I have 2 master's degree. One is in my country and Iran, and then I came here, Germany, in 2020, and started my second master's degree at TUM. So, yep. Please continue, Max.
Yeah. And then we go back, and this is the Venios we talk about, like the company from 2012. We have a lot of different customers, all like official distribution system operators. We won several prizes in the last 10 years. Like that's the normal talk you have to do if you have an innovative project and product. And as you can see on the map on the right, it started all in Central Europe, and now we do the projects around the world. And one of my favorite sites is actually South America. I was already there in the beginning of the year for nearly 2 months, working on the projects in Argentina, in Chile, was also in Colombia. And yeah, I will, as I said, start with a very short introduction about the, let's say, history of machine learning. Like, what are the key approaches in the field? Because this is, and this is maybe also just a reference for afterwards if you get the slides, what is there? What is the tool set? And I think we should not go through each of them, but the idea behind it is the tool set is the same for everybody. And if anybody wants to join in the field of artificial intelligence, then now it's the perfect time, because to tell the truth, everything is nowadays based on deep neural networks. And I have to admit, also my study plan of 8 years ago is more or less like the history of machine learning, and not many of the algorithms are still reasonable to apply. But one can see historically, it all started like long time ago when somebody thought about, oh, there are artificial neural networks. We try to simulate the brain. Just to have the idea how long it took. But then only 30 years later, really progress had been made when the first computers emerged, which had a little bit more reasonable compute power. First, it was statistical approaches. Everybody who does forecasting knows ARIMA algorithm. And then it started to do it with artificial neural networks. They were the very first primitive ones. Then you started stacking them with a multi-layer perceptron, different algorithms. Then the random forest, where you say, ooh, I make decision trees and put them all together. And only afterwards, after all this history, we came to the more or less new world. That means you had networks which suddenly have like a long short-term memory, like can remind things much better. You have convolutional neural networks, which were for analyzing pictures and made large progress there. Then there was a large jump again, and then it started to getting, let's say, very fancy. The first improvements were then done based on these networks, which adversarial ones, which fight each other. Like you have one which generates artificial pictures, and one other network which has to identify, is it artificial or is it real? And like this, both networks can train against each other and get better, if they just have enough rounds of playing with each other. And this, in the end, were then all the breakthroughs. And I think, especially since ChatGPT, everybody knows about the large power of the large language models. And this is all based on these transformer models. I really don't want to go to the details, but if you later are interested, just Google these names and you will directly see this is the important parts. Then you had transformers, and these ones has then used for these language models, but also, of course, for timeline forecasting, but only recently, to tell the truth, like 2020. And you have actually all these kind of algorithms. That was not even a recap, that was just a run through. But the only thing I wanted to give as an inspiration there, everything is out there and you can access actually everything just for free. Like we now develop, and what we develop is actually to large parts also based on free libraries, which you can also access. So in projects that we use, for example, these are good examples of libraries. On the one hand, of course, Python. On the other hand, backend, we develop on C#. And if I would have to enumerate like the most important libraries for the things that we will also show later, then on the one hand, for general machine learning, you have this amazing scikit-learn library for Python. Only recently, there was Darts released, which is a library really just for forecasting. And like all these things which I showed here, for example, I want to use a temporal fusion transformer for forecasting. Yes, you can read the paper, then it's much easier to choose the parameters, but in the end, it's already implemented, and you can use your Darts library to really apply that to your data. And you can download this library and can really apply it. And that's, I think, the very interesting part about it. And then for artificial neural networks, there is TensorFlow. They have an amazing learning path actually online. If you go there, you even get like remote access to graphics cards for free. Like every day you get like a certain amount of hours where you can train your neural networks to get it done and where you can learn. And it's really a fun project. I wanted to say, especially for the winter, but that is only here in Europe. Winter is not coming at your place, but nonetheless. And then also the same in C#. We use some library for genetic algorithms. There is a library for Bayesian inference. That means if you want to calculate probabilities with each other. And it's mostly like this. The community for machine learning is, to tell the truth, very open. And even the large models get published after some years. So one has really the chance to dive in there, and one should not get afraid. And it's very amazing which nice results one can get from it. And that brings us, after I now really advertised what is all there, and I said already, or introduced the talk with this overview about machine learning, and then concrete applications. And this is now the second part of it. Like, we have this tool set now, it is accessible, but which concrete use cases are actually in the field of artificial intelligence that we can apply in the energy domain? This is now what we are interested in, since Vinios, as I said, offers a solution for grid operators, how they can smartly operate their grids. And one part is for sure short-term load forecasting. That means you have a load profile and you know what is actually your consumption until a certain amount of time. And then you want to do a prognosis. How will what will be the consumption like tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? That is, of course, very important for the whole country, because we have to know how to schedule our power stations. For example, the nuclear power station, it cannot just decide in 50 seconds, I want to increase my load or I want to lower my load. You have to, before, have a prognosis, what will the consumption be like, so that later on you can lift the power or you can lower the power. And yeah, how do we do that in the end? Funny enough, there are a lot of approaches in the end. You can do it statistically, you can do artificial intelligence, what of course is interesting for us. You can have expert systems. You can make this all kind of part intelligence apply to the problem, while statistical and artificial intelligence, yeah, it's both kind of AI. But what we really do, to tell the truth, is using mostly in the industry is really using like the humans, which make nowadays still like standard load curves. Here in Germany, for example, still. And this is where we, for example, also have a very nice market, because we can apply then better artificial intelligence algorithms and with that improve the current prognosis quality. One thing which is important, the more houses you have, the better the prognosis will be. Of course, it's the law of large numbers. If you have 1 million households, the prognosis quality will be much better than if you only want to prognose like 2 households, because for 2 households, it makes a large difference if somebody is stuck in traffic jam or not, and is at home at night or is not at home at night. And for 1 million households, one person will be surprisingly at home and the other will be surprisingly away, and then it outbalances itself. And for large numbers, that's what I meant. A lot of DSOs nowadays don't really use all these cool artificial intelligence-based algorithms, but to be practical, to tell the truth, they really just take standard curves and sum them together. Like I have 5,000 households and they all add up like with a standard load curve. And then I have my consumption, and that's for the everyday life good enough. Until now, and that's what is now interesting for the new generation, the energy system got much more complex because these nuclear power stations I talked about disappear at some places, but then we get all these renewables and electrical vehicles, and you need much more insights. And that's what is then new. As I showed you from the map, different algorithms you can apply, and neural networks are one of them. What I said earlier, one can really go for it. There are these statistical approaches, other historic approaches, but to get the very best performance nowadays with all the compute power, it's mostly the artificial neural networks. And then you have a network, you give in like the historic power, you give in maybe the time you want to prognose, you give in the weather, you hand in like, is it a national holiday or not? And then your neural network will in the end spit out the actual energy consumption. And there are more complex architectures. This would be just a simple multi-layer perceptron, but there are also these long short-term memory networks, which have this, as I said, they can remind much better the past. So they have a better understanding of, okay, what happened yesterday and what does it mean for today? Then you can hand in those and can have still a fully connected network all going together and giving you a better prognosis. And then also these ones I showed you in the very first slides here. If you go to the last years, 2018, 2020, these new models have been created, which are now much deeper and based on new strategies to set them up. This is what you cannot do also nowadays. But even that, as I said, you can do that with the libraries available in the field. And we do that as well and get better performance out of it. Another application for it is in the end non-intrusive load monitoring. So we leave behind the forecasting. Something else we can do is disaggregating loads in the field. That means you have some load profile and you want to understand what is in it. This is indeed like a real measured load profile from Christmas Eve at my parents' place when I was at home in 2017. And here you can really identify appliances based on artificial intelligence. So you can actually see what did I do on my Christmas evening. We had like electric heater on because we were sitting in the garden first, and it was winter. And then somewhere around 5, my mother started the stove for the dinner. In the end, I had like still work on artificial intelligence going on in this year. That's why you can here actually see my my PC in the background running an artificial neural network and training it. And then in the very end here on the right, you can see the dishwasher after we had like our dinner. And for this, you need an algorithm as well, which understands, okay, this pattern here is maybe the dishwasher. Oh, apparently these slides broke. This is a dishwasher. This here is TV switching on. And this here is a stove, which uses all three phases, for example. Some are easier to identify, others are more difficult to identify. And neural networks, for example, give an perfect flexibility to classify these patterns in the data set. In the end, it's really the same thing like you want to identify an elephant on a picture. You have this complex picture and you want to recognize a certain pattern. Just that here you don't look for the elephant in the picture, but you look for the stove in the power flow. And until today, there are really a bunch of different algorithms for that, for this disaggregation. It makes a difference if it's supervised, like I know there is a dishwasher and I know there is a washing machine, or if it's unsupervised. And then it also makes a difference, like what kind of frequency do I have my measurements? If I have, for example, a very high frequency, then really only deep learning is capable to understand all this complexity behind it, because normal statistical approaches just don't understand it. But this is also one thing which is very interesting for us, one can do. This is in the end not really for a large amount of analysis for a DSO, but mostly used if you have like a facility of an industry and they want to track if a machine is broken or if some other anomaly is happening, then they can do this to track if everything is running properly and identify machine A, B, and C on the industry plant. And now we have a third use case, and this is actually presented by Human, because that was actually your scientific work at TUM, right? University in Munich.
Yes. So should I share my screen or you will
I think
continue?
I can share. You just give me a short continue.
Okay.
I will just unreveal as you
So
talk.
let me start from the first topic, which is powerful also. Thanks, Max. Now I will be presenting my master thesis at TUM on enhancing power flow studies. So I used physics-based deep learning to solve power flow problem. And we are currently working at venues to implement it in our future work. So firstly, power flow analysis is fundamental for design, operation, and planning of electrical power systems. It allows us to calculate voltage at each node and determine how real and reactive power flows through the network lines in the network under steady state conditions. And please continue, Max. However, there are challenges with traditional methods like Newton-Raphson, Gauss-Seidel. These iterative methods often face convergence issues, especially as the system approaches voltage collapse region. The increasing nonlinearity and uncertainty introduced by modern demand, as Max explained, and the integration of renewable energy resources exacerbate these issues. Continue. So to tackle or address these issues, we first consider powerful problem as an inverse problem. So to do so, we need to reformulate powerful equations into least square optimization problem to utilize physics-based deep learning or neural networks. And at the end, our results can show that the solver can enhance accuracy and robustness over traditional methods. Yeah, go to the next slide. Yeah. Okay.
Shall I continue?
So yeah. No, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Let me start from here. So continuing from the challenge with traditional methods, our methodology proposed a novel approach by reformulating the power flow problem into least square optimization problem. We called it LSE here, or least square estimation. So it allows us to minimize objective function, which is the mismatch, the power real and reactive power mismatch at each node. And we can include penalty terms like operational constraints in the power system, so we can add them into our optimization objective function of our optimization problem. So, for example, we can add the voltage magnitude limitation or the power limitation for each line. And then we use neural network to represent this physical power flow problem with neural network, and at the end we can replace the power system with digital twin like neural network, which can decide according to its inputs. Yep. So to do so, yeah, as you can see in the block diagram at the bottom of this slide, we have inputs and several instances of inputs which can be indexed by I here, and net here is representing the neural network. So we want to first reparameterize the power flow equation space, and then at the end we can apply it into our how can I say real world power systems. Then forward block here, FWD, is the physical model of our power system, and the output of it is least square estimation of the power flow problem. So we will have several instances of least square estimation, and we will sum up them to minimize them and use them during our training process. So please continue. Yep, this is our neural network architecture. So we use very simple artificial neural network. So our neural network, our neural network has three dense layers with 512 neurons. We used ReLU activation function, and the output layer can estimate or can predict the voltage magnitude and voltage angles of each node, excluding the slack node. So for the implementation, we used Python, and in Python we used, as Max explained, we used TensorFlow and also PyFlow, which is developed by TUM. also we use math power for validation process, which you can see here. Yeah. So first we need to validate our least square estimation against the traditional method. So we have to show that our least square estimation is exactly or is similar to the traditional power flow problem. So to do so, we have to we have tested it on two power systems. One is a 5-node case study and 118-node case study. So after validation, we do a performance analysis on our proposed method. So in the performance analysis, we compare it with, can you go to the next? Yeah. We compare our proposed approach with other solver, which is named BFGS, which is a quasi-Newton-based algorithm. So here in the performance analysis, we have two case studies, case studies. One is a static and one is probabilistic. So in the static power flow, we initialize the methods, each of these methods that I explained, from different initial points for solving a power flow problem with the static consumption and generation. But in the probabilistic one, we initialize it from the same initial point, but we have several power flow problems with the probabilistic consumption and generation. So as you can see from the results, our proposed method can outperform the BFGS method. And if we use refined BFGS method, which means that we initialize the BFGS with the prediction of the our trained neural network, so we will have very robust and accurate solution with very lower iteration to reach the optimal point. And as you can see from the pictures, if we scale up our power systems to 180 node, it also show that our solution can outperform the BFGS method. And as we have seen in the 5-node system, so for 880 node also we have a better or robust accurate solution for refined BFGS. So please go to the next one. Yep. So our research significantly enhances power flow analysis by reparameterizing the solution space with neural network. We develop a hybrid framework that combines least square estimation, the BFGS algorithm, and neural network reparameterization, resulting in more accurate and robust power flow solutions. This approach was validated through comprehensive case studies, which you have seen, 5-node and 118-node studies. So looking ahead in venues, we are working on developing or extending the model to manage more complex scenarios, especially with high level of renewable energy integration. And we also plan to integrate real-world measured data to create a hybrid physics-based and data-driven model. And to extend our approach, we plan to extend it to solve optimal power flow problems, further improving efficiency and stability in power system operation. So I think for the next slides, you will continue, Max, yeah?
Yeah, thank you very much, Human. And while this was also power flow on its own raises questions, what do I then do with the power flow? Like a power flow calculation tells you where does the power flow, as the name implies. What we do with it, we now want to show very shortly in the very last part of the presentation. And this is really the application of all these solutions we just mentioned in an industry-ready product. And this is in the end our Venius.net platform. And what can you do by such a platform, which we will look at? There are numerous use cases. Oh, wow. Somehow the typing got very small in the online presentation. Like optimization of reactive power, predictive maintenance, optimized grid planning. You can detect anomalies. Then what is sometimes an issue, energy theft, like non-technical losses, because you can understand if something doesn't look normal. And then you can understand that this is done by theft. And then, of course, also optimized grid control, like really automative decision making. That means you have limits on your grid because you have just a certain cable and a certain transformer. And then there is a lot of load, or there is a lot of energy generation from wind and PV. And then you can use the artificial intelligence to actively switch switches, change the topology to use your available infrastructure as good as possible. And the amount of use cases you can put there are more or less infinite. You can also include other sectors like heat or gas networks to then also simulate components which are linking those different branches, like these different kind of energy. For example, combined heat and power, it consumes gas and it creates heat and it creates energy. And there you use a lot of models. And now I shortly want to jump over into the solution, just that you have for 5 minutes a short glimpse what this really looks like if you visualize it. So I try to switch over to my browser. Here we are. Are there questions so far while I'm currently changing my screen? Not yet. That is perfect. So I have to somehow say to Bildschirmfreigabe, where are we?
So Max, we are.
Yeah, you're just
you
seeing
are
the other. I know. I'm just trying to figure out where I can stop the screen share. Here it is. Now I managed. And now I switch over to my browser. So hopefully you can see it now.
Yes.
Perfect. So we have a lot of applications, and exactly what I said earlier, all these topics about grid operation, grid planning, grid strategy, you can enumerate them and we just add them one by one. So if you also have a cool idea about a use case, then you could theoretically approach us and use our API to put your solution on top of the available infrastructure. And what does it really look in the field? We really have a data model of the energy grid. Like here you can see it. So there is a certain grid topology, like this is a substation, and this is like one part of a city. In this situation here, it's Zurich. And you can see like the cables go along the streets and then connect to all the houses. And if we now do one of our power flow simulations, and these power flow simulations can really be done as a human just explained, also based on an AI to make it faster, because then we can not only do it every 15 minutes for a city, for example, but we can do it every minute. And actually, we're talking about much higher frequencies, like then it's really like you can do it in a sub-second, like a sub-minute time span. And now I switched over, looking onto one of these power flow calculations, and then you can really see what is the power going into the grid at a certain point in time. And then you know, okay, currently I consume 700 kilowatt of energy flowing into all these households. Because for each of these households in the field, you have in the end really like a model. And we have that for all kind of elements which are connected to the grid. And if I look onto the history of the timelines, that is very interesting. Because if we do it in a modeled way, like what I just explained, you can see it looks very smooth because my model is telling me that it is working this way. But, and I know here we still have measurements. If I switch over to show then also the measurements next to it for the very same grid area, then it gets apparent that the reality is, of course, less smoother. But it's interesting because you can still see that the model kind of catches the trend. Even without the model, the measurements included, you can see it's going down, it's going up again. And somehow our prognosis was in the middle of what was the actual power consumption. But with the measurements, it is much easier to see because here you can really see, oh, there is a charging station and it switched on and it switched off and it switched on and switched off again. What would be another application you could see here? It is a dream to do this load, non-intrusive load monitoring, like this disaggregation I showed earlier, because it's very easy to identify here when is my loading charging station switched on and when is it switched off, and to identify it in the load. And these are just all explanations what we do. We do a power flow, we have these models, and we can do this disaggregation. And if we put it all together, this creates like a holistic solution, which is even nowadays already really used by distribution system operators. And this is more or less like the whole message I wanted to send today, that it's always a buzzword like this artificial intelligence. But in the end, you can really apply it to solve concrete issues of in the grid and create transparency and follow use cases. And yeah, that's from my end, from humans and my side. And then we just have 10 minutes also for questions.
Thank you, Max, for your presentation. I have a question.
Yes.
In a few words, no? As a summary, substantial difference between ADMS and venues.
Okay.
A summary, for example, functionality, prediction, digital twin.
In the end, like the ADMS, which is like an advanced distribution management system, is a little bit more focused on the distribution and the energy like how to say it, the prosumers in the field to find intelligent algorithms there and focus much more on how do I optimize my prosumers against each other. For us, the focus is much more also on the grid itself, like a SCADA system, an actual one, which does a power flow calculation and using the grid topology. But to tell the truth, we are kind also scratching the use cases of an ADMS. Like the intersection is very large because the definition is also a little bit fuzzy. In the end, also you can say ADMS includes the topology and also has a grid calculation inside. So I would not even say we are not an ADMS. It depends a little bit on the area on the globe where you are talking about the field, to tell the truth.
Ok. Perdón, ¿alguien más tiene alguna pregunta para hacerles? Ahí está el contacto también para poder escribirle a Maximiliano o a Human. Bueno, parece que no hay más preguntas.
Perfecto.
Bueno,
Entonces,
bueno, bastante bien.
pienso que es todo
Hemos visto ya
para
varias presentaciones
ahora.
de ustedes también. El jueves pasado estuvo también Tobías presentando.
And if anybody is interested, I wrote it here just in the notes. I don't know if you can still see my screen. I think it stopped the sharing. If anybody is interested in joining the journey, we are always looking for inspired people to join the team. We are actually a very young team, to admit. Now growing since the challenges in the energy sector become larger and larger, and there are so many new ways of technology how you can face the issues and the topics. So totally feel free to find us online, vinios.de, and get in touch with us. Also, maybe for a thesis, this is all possible from our side. We are very interested there.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a todos y nos vemos el próximo jueves a la misma hora.
Perfect.
Okay.
Then, thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
you very much, Max, Human.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And then looking forward for next week.
Yes.
As the audience, then again.
Okay.
Then goodbye, everybody.